$5 now, or $15 in a week. Most adults pick the 15. People with ADHD systematically pick the 5 more often, across hundreds of studies, in every age group, not because they want money less, because their brain treats the future 15 as if it were less real. That's not a focus problem. It's a motivation circuit running at a different setting. About 1 in 40 adults have it strongly enough that we call it clinical. Today, what that circuit is, and where the line falls between distractible and ADHD. ADHD is, formally, a neurodevelopmental disorder. DSM-5, text revision, criteria, at least 5 symptoms in adults from a list of 9 in either domain: inattention, or hyperactivity, impulsivity, onset before age 12, present in 2 or more settings, persistent for at least 6 months, and, critically, causing clear functional impairment in social, academic, or occupational life. That last word is the line. Not sometimes distracted, not procrastinates. The diagnosis requires all 5 conditions met, persistently. About 1 in 20 children and 1 in 40 adults meet them. What ADHD isn't: a chemical imbalance in the simple sense pop psychology often frames it. The current science is more specific. It's about how one particular brain circuit signals approach this. Inside the brain, 2 pathways carry dopamine from the midbrain. One, mesocortical, feeds the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which handles working memory and inhibition. That's the executive function pathway. The other, mesolimbic, feeds the ventral striatum and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. That one decides whether the next action is worth starting. In a typical brain, the mesolimbic pathway fires phasically, a brief burst of dopamine, when something rewarding shows up. With learning, the burst transfers to the cue that predicts the reward. The cue alone keeps you moving. Schultz, Dion, and Montague described this in a 1997 paper in Science. In ADHD, that transfer is weaker. Tripp and Wickens, in 2008, called this the dopamine transfer deficit. The reward, when it arrives, fires dopamine normally. The cue that predicts it does not. Plichta and Sherris ran a meta-analysis of functional MRI studies in 2014. Across studies, ventral striatum activation during reward anticipation was significantly lower in ADHD. Effect size, medium. Cohen's d around 0.48. Volkov's group at the National Institute on Drug Abuse in JAMA 2009 measured the same population with PT. Lower D2 and D3 receptor availability in the nucleus accumbens. The motivation circuit signal is, on multiple measures, real and measurable, and it shows up before any task even starts. Watch what this circuit does in a normal week. A person sits down to write a report due on Friday. The deadline is real, but it's 3 days away. The cue, the laptop, the document, the deadline, doesn't fire much in the ventral striatum because the reward is too far. The brain treats it like a $15 option in a week. So the report gets opened, then closed. Email gets answered. Coffee gets refilled. The brain isn't refusing to work. It's not finding the go signal strong enough to overcome the small, immediate rewards of every other thing. Now switch to a colleague without ADHD. Same deadline. The cue does fire. The go signal carries the action forward. From the outside, both people should be able to focus. From inside the brain scan, only one of them is getting the predictor signal that makes focus feel automatic. A second pattern, where the misdiagnosis happens. A woman in her late 20s walks into a clinic exhausted. She describes anxiety, low mood, can't seem to start things. She gets diagnosed with depression or generalized anxiety. The treatment helps the depression and the anxiety, but not the can't start things. About 4 years later on average, across multiple cohort studies, she gets the right diagnosis: ADHD that was masked by the comorbidities. The 4-year gap is one of the most consistent gender findings in adult ADHD research. ADHD doesn't look identical in every brain. The presentation called inattentive looks very different from the combined presentation. And that difference is part of why diagnosis is hard. If that misdiagnosis pattern hit home, quick word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by my own private community, over 100,000 deep dive courses on psychology, neuroscience, and cognition. If today made the mechanism click, and you want deeper material on the brain behind ADHD and clinical psychology, that's what's inside. Link is in the description below. Now, back to why this circuit exists at all. The mesolimbic dopamine system is not a malfunction. It's the oldest motivation system the mammalian brain has. It evolved to track resources by probability and proximity. What's near, what's certain, what's now. In an environment where far rewards may not arrive. That bias is adaptive. Modern environments are different. They demand sustained engagement with rewards that are abstract, delayed, and uncertain. A report due Friday, a career payoff in 5 years, a retirement account, a circuit calibrated for proximate rewards doesn't break in those environments. It runs exactly as it evolved to run. ADHD is, in that frame, not a broken system. It's a real neurobiological setting on a real continuum, sitting at the lower end of phasic anticipation strength, in an environment that punishes that setting. The popular hunter versus farmer explanation isn't supported by evidence. The cleaner framing is the one above. Same system, different setting, mismatched environment. Stimulant medications, methylphenidate class, amphetamine class, are, by Cortese and colleagues' 2018 Lancet Psychiatry Network meta-analysis, the most effective acute treatment for ADHD. Effect size on clinician-rated symptoms in adults. Cohen's d, around 0.79. Mechanism: increase synaptic dopamine, partially restore the phasic firing that's running soft. Non-stimulants, atomoxetine, alpha-2 agonists, work for a subset with smaller effect sizes, around 0.4 to 0.6. Cognitive behavioral therapy works as an adjunct, especially when anxiety or depression are also present. It does not restore the underlying signal. It helps the person work around it. Environmental scaffolding, externalizing cues, breaking tasks into smaller units with immediate feedback, works because the mechanism is a weak predictor signal. The cue gets externalized. What evidence does not support as primary intervention? Dietary elimination in the absence of allergy. Working memory training games, neurofeedback in well-controlled trials, and, most importantly, willpower. Because effort discounting is itself a feature of the disorder. The clinical question is functional impairment across multiple settings, persistent onset before age 12. That's a clinician's question, not a YouTube video's. $5 now, or $15 in a week. The brain that picks the 5 isn't broken. It's a circuit running at a real setting, doing exactly what dopamine systems evolved to do, preferring close and certain over far and abstract. What changes is what the modern world rewards. The science isn't about willpower, it's about a signal, phasic, anticipatory, dopaminergic, that runs softer for some people and shows up on every scan we run. Your brain is different. Here's the science. We'll do depression next. If that's the explanation you've been waiting for, subscribe.